Spookies, least
Have you ever explored the depths of fear? Have you ever wondered what depravity dwells within the imagination of a storyteller that prompts them to exhume horrors untold and expose those horrors to unsuspecting audiences? Some are repulsed, and some are shaken. However, there are those who are invigorated. So to those demented souls, we invite you to journey inward into the dark bowels of human imagination. Press play, and you will discover what's in the podcast.
Happy birthday, Billy.
Mama! Mama!
Come on, Megan, it's spooky as hell inside!
And welcome back to the first Halloween edition of What's in the Podcast. And for this one, we are dusting off a feature from our YouTube days. Now, for those who have followed us, you will be very delighted to see that we are bringing this back. But for those who do not know, during the times of YouTube, actually kicked off during the pandemic, actually kicked off because of the pandemic, the channel was kind of in a stagnant state. We weren't able to do any of our regular features because those usually involved us socializing, and 2020, you do the math. So it was during that time we decided, well, we need to come up with a feature that both you and I could do together, and also something that was kind of devoid of cynicism, because that was kind of going around hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just sick of the cynicism, and especially with 2020, we needed some positivity.
Yeah.
Especially.
And we decided, well, when it comes to movie criticism, everyone seems to be in black and white. Everyone seems to be either it's got to be really good or really bad, and there's not. And
your enjoyment of it is equals what is good or bad, like holistically. Oh, yeah. I didn't enjoy it. It's bad. But that's not necessarily true.
Exactly. So we created a feature called Comfort Flicks, a feature that was designed specifically to talk about us, harping love on movies that weren't really darlings, whether it be critically or sometimes didn't even do well box office wise. These are just movies that we loved regardless of that.
Yeah, the fact that we were showcasing the fact that you can love something that's imperfect.
Exactly. Because, well, what is love if not loving not just the good sides, but the bad sides?
Exactly.
Precisely. Mm-hmm. And during Halloween, and even after we kind of veered away from YouTube, when we did our Halloween version of this, which we called Discomfort Flicks,
yeah.
Honestly, those turned out to be some of our favorite episodes to do, just because
there's some funny stuff.
Yeah, a lot of funny stuff.
And some good movies.
I mean, nothing beats the time I told Lincoln to check your 6. Yeah, when we were talking about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
I
was like, what the fuck?
You were just like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, that was some funny shit.
So we decided, and it was just too fun of a feature to do, to just let die. So we decided to bring it back for Halloween, for Discomfort Flicks 2024, but we're doing it in podcast form. And, oh boy, for our first one, we got ourselves a doozy, people. You want to do the intro on this one? Because I know you love this one so much.
This movie's so stupid.
In fact, you do the intro while
I don't know how do you do an intro? Like, how do you intro this movie? When you have a movie named Spookies.
Hey, we watch Spookies. It's very good news and movies.
How do you intro that shit? Like,
I mean, I could do a cutaway to this.
Hey, we watch Spookies. It's very good news and movies.
You name a movie Spookies, you know this is going to be some schlocky shit. It's going to be amazing, and it is everything that you could want.
Oh, man. Well, here's the thing. I don't even think people realize they wanted it until they actually saw it.
It's that thing where you don't know you want it, but when you see it, you know you wanted it. Like, that kind of amazing.
I mean, this is kind of one of those movies that ticks the box of every horror fan who just wants to see, like, the most craziest shit up on the screen. Because this movie provides a lot of that in abundance.
It's everything that a schlocky horror film could have and more, but it makes absolutely no sense. But that's kind of the brilliance of it. You don't have to think. You don't have to get that kind of deeply engaged. This is not a movie that's going to, God help me, trigger anyone or make you want to like loathe people. No, it's 100% just enjoy the ride. Do you understand it? No. Do they understand it? No, they don't.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Well, I would even say part of the fun of the movie is trying to decipher it.
No,
I have fun. I have fun doing that just because I know
I don't have any idea what the hell's going on, but I'm on sign. It's kind of like a roller coaster where you don't know where this thing is going.
Yeah.
But you're going to enjoy the ride.
And in previous podcasts, especially the one when we talked about is there such a thing as bad horror, I brought up the idea that sometimes certain films are more interesting when you discover their production history. And a lot of times when you find out how the crazy shit that went on behind the scenes, knowing that actually does enrich the experience of watching the film, because here you are trying to figure out heads or tails about where one part ends, the other one begins. Because if there's one thing to be said for Spookies, this is the one time that you could say it's two movies in one, because unfortunately it is two movies in one.
And you can kind of, once you know that story of the fact that this is literally two movies in one, you can see where it is. It's kind of hilarious.
Oh, yeah. So the film was directed by, at first the film was directed by Thomas Durand and Brendan Faulkner, and the original title of the film was Twisted Souls. So we're going to tag team synopses on this one.
Oh, God.
So, you take the easy one.
Which one's the easy one? They're both fucking hard as shit. Okay, I'll take, I think, Twisted Souls. I'm good.
Yeah, you take the Twisted Souls.
Guess this
you take the Twisted Souls.
Because there's no way of knowing. So a bunch of people, like in their 20s or 30s, I don't know
from 20s to 40s.
Yeah, I don't know. A group of people go to this house, they find a Ouija board, and it summons a bunch of creatures and demons that kills them.
Yeah,
that's about it.
They strive to survive the night.
I guess that was the original idea.
Yeah, that was kind of the original idea. And so Thomas Durand and Brendan Faulkner, yeah, it was just designed to be a big old smorgasbord of really kick-ass creature effects.
Which does happen.
Yeah,
that's in the movie.
In
and
abundance.
It's wonderful. Yeah,
and if there's anything I will say, it is a great showcase of, actually, one cool credential on here, Gabe Bartalos, who would, I believe, after this, work on Brain Damage and Basket Cases 2 and 3, and I think he worked on Frankenhooker as well. So he's got, and also our favorite little shit, the Leprechaun,
of course,
worked on those as well. So this one, and the Steadicam op on this one is Jim Murrow, who I had to look it up. I think he worked on Basket Case, the original, but he would go on to direct cult classic Street Trash, which is getting a remake very, very soon, which I'm oddly excited about. But what happened was that they had the misfortune of choosing of getting it financed by a producer who, prior to this, he only just acquired pre-existing movies that had already been made so he could distribute them for his company and make a little money on pre-existing material. But of course he wanted to produce his own movies, so he bankrolled Twisted Souls, but he kept throwing in everything he wanted in there.
The studio meddling situation.
Yeah, in this case it was the studio just took the form of a very out-of-line producer, Mike, I believe his name, Michael Lee, I think his name was. And let me see. Yeah, Michael Lee was the producer, and he kept making outlandish recommendations, some of which unfortunately ended up in the movie, some of it including the fact that they, because of the success of movies like Gremlins and I want to say Ghoulies, like movies like that, he said, well, we got to give it a wacky or even the Goonies, I think, as well.
Yeah.
He was like, we need to give it a title like that because that's what it'll make it bank. We got to call it something crazy like Spookies. And Michael Lee was a British producer, so one can only assume Spookies was kind of like more of a British term.
I'm not getting into the history of that term, but it's not a positive one if you really know the deep, dark.
This is a podcast. You go ahead and tell.
I more recently learned the history of the term, like, spook and spooky is very seeped in racism.
Oh, well, that part I knew.
So,
I knew.
So, like, I mean, I don't think that this person had any concept of that was a history of the term, and thought it was just, woo. So, I mean, like, I don't think there was any nefarious purpose on that. It literally, I think it was just fucking stupid, but that's the name of the movie they chose.
Yeah, that's what they went with. But that, ironically, was the least of the director's issues, because in time they got so frustrated, and they, I believe, alternating stories. On some side they got fired, Other sides, they just bailed on the project.
I kind of feel like they got fired.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those forced to be fired situations where you're forced to walk because they're going to fire you.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah, so they ended up... So I believe she started out as an editor on the project. Well, they ended up choosing Eugenie Joseph. Well, Michael Lee picked Eugenie Joseph to basically reshoot a major portion of the film. No one knows. She has never come forward in any kind of interview or anything like that.
It's not her fault. She was put in that position. I'm kind of going to defend her. It's like, she did the job.
Yeah.
She's not the bad guy. Criticizing her is not fair. It's like, she was brought in to do something, like someone else was going to do it. So,
Yeah.
like it is what it is.
Someone else is going to be the scab in this situation. It was not. Yeah, it's not fair to attack Eugenie Joseph for. But essentially, she looked at what was there and said, well, there's barely a movie here. We might as well just like cut a lot of it and just try to interweave what we can. And with that, I'm going to give the Spookies half of the synopsis.
I guess
where,
that's what you're going to call it? Okay.
Yeah, where there is I guess the best you could describe is a kind of a Phantom of the Opera type figure, like lurking at it in depths of the house, where he is trying to resurrect his in stasis bride. Sorry to use a sci-fi term in a ghost movie, but he's been feeding her souls to kind of rejuvenate her and ultimately resurrect her.
She doesn't even like him.
Yeah, it's that.
She doesn't even like him.
Doesn't even like him. So.
And also, there's like a kid, there's a spooky kid.
Yeah, but it turns out they had a kid together who, in her absence, he's been grooming to be like this nasty little.
And then you get the cat guy.
Yeah, and for no reason, he has himself a hook-handed cat boy in a gold vest.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I will honestly say the Twisted Souls part makes more sense, and it doesn't make much sense at all. More sense than the Spookies side, because that is just throwing everything at the wall.
Yeah.
But it's kind of irritating in just how bonkers it is. It's just like, what the fuck is going? They kill a kid though. So.
They do kill a kid. And actually, that's the most.
I mean, kudos to you, movie.
Yeah,
you killed the kid.
The whole movie starts with this random kid plot where a runaway kid ends up stumbling upon this house, and even before that, stumbles across some rando drifter.
The old man who looks like he's 30.
Yeah.
Old man.
No,
Thanks, movie.
That guy looked like a guitar player at a hipster coffee bar.
Yeah, he really did.
He kind of did. I mean, if he looked older, then you'd be the.
He called himself old man. I'm like, bitch, you ain't like 32. Shut the fuck up.
I got more hair than you. Fuck off.
Yeah, right. I have more hair than you do. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
No, like.
Yeah, so the movie follows this kid as he's like traipsing through the house. Apparently, he's a runaway. And for the most
didn't they forget his birthday?
Yeah, the most first world problem.
Bitch, learn.
It's like, yeah,
people will forget your birthday. Get over it.
When you get to our age, you're not going to want people to acknowledge your fucking birthday after that.
I had my family forget my birthday once.
Hey,
I didn't give a fuck. I was like,
hey, I have deliberately kept people away from learning my birthday.
I know.
Yeah, well, I know you know, but they don't know. So yeah, and inevitably it just culminates in the kid getting scared to death and being slashed and buried alive by the cat boy.
For no reason.
And that's in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
There's no reason this happens. There's no plot point to it. It's great.
All I can say is that I guess it's because they're claiming another soul again to feed
But they don't even do anything with it. They kill this kid in the opening sequence and there's no point to it.
Yeah.
There's no point.
And they attempt to weave all this into what's going on the Twisted Souls plot. So after that, in comes our entire like cacophony of very oddball characters who we have no idea what the hell relationship they are to each other.
I don't know. They're all different ages. They don't like each other. They're all cranky little bitches, and I don't get it. They're all dressed. The one was the one who dressed in a trash bag.
Duke.
Duke
Yeah.
Duke dressed like he's a reject from a Thriller music
video.
video.
Reject from a music Thriller video, and he's got Hoffman lips, and he's, he's got...
Oh, fuck!
Now you're not going to feel it.
Now I'm not going to see that again, man.
Oh, Emily, that's for you. You're going to love that.
Fuck off, man. That was horrible. I'm not going to see that. Fuck you, man. So what the fuck? Just keep going.
I'm gonna try. Okay. Okay. Composure. Okay.
We're back to normal.
For the most part. So, and meanwhile, you've also got another guy who, with a hand puppet. Mook is the puppet's name. And so they all are, apparently they were at a party, but then they get wind of another party, and they make the dumb mistake of following Duke.
Is that a thing? Is that what people do back in the 80s? They hear about a party and then they travel to the middle of nowhere for another party?
I mean, I guess if they're hopped up on cocaine, I guess, like...
there had to be cocaine
There had to be some
There
cocaine
had
involved.
to be cocaine involved
Possibly.
in this movie.
Just by virtue of the fact that, guy dressed in garbage bags, dating a, New York reject, with the red curly hair.
At least no one clearly was a teenager.
Yeah.
There was no fucking way. All 30s to 40s. Like,
Yeah,
we're
30s to 40s.
We're not looking even, these are not teenagers. These are grown-ass adults
And
doing shit.
And you even have one woman among the group her entire performance, you get the vibe that she's trying to act like she's in a different movie, like she's in some kind of film noir soap opera.
Yeah, she's definitely not existing in this world.
Yeah, none of these characters seem to be existing on any plane of existence in relation to each other. So it's not a question. So I guess you could ask the question: which story really was the better one, the Twisted Souls one or the Spookies one?
I think combined, they made the better story.
Yeah,
I hate to say that. Like, I feel bad for the original directors of Twisted Souls. Their vision was destroyed. I feel like it was kind of like their idea was chocolate and the other one was vanilla. But when you combine them, sometimes you make something special. This movie would not be talked about or as entertaining as it is if it didn't have that.
Exactly.
Crushing of two movies that have tonally are different as hell.
Yeah.
It would not be as fun as it is.
Yeah, I think on its own, Twisted Souls would have just been an exercise in great special effects, but not really great
it just
scripting.
would have been meh. Like, cool special effects, but we've seen plenty of movies that have great effects, great stuff, but like the film just is forgettable.
Yeah.
I feel like because of the crushing of another film that makes absolutely fucking no sense.
Yeah.
Spookies elevated itself to memorable.
Yeah, and to the point where I've heard whispers that apparently a sequel is finally in the works. Sure. Well, hey, you know what?
You do that. I don't think...
We've got a sequel to The Mutilator coming out.
Yeah,
so...
I don't... Yeah, and I saw the trailer and I was kind of...
I'm still going to watch it.
I mean, yeah, but I feel like maybe Spookies is that lightning in a bottle of chaos that made it special. Do I think that can be replicated? No, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, like... No slight to Ghostbusters, but Ghostbusters 2 tried to do the same thing and it didn't work as well. It was still entertaining, but what I'm saying is Spookies is very much a very unique, weird situation to make it what it is, and that's why it's entertaining. Yeah,
so let's kind of go into some of the little ingredients that were really standouts for us. I mean, for me, myself... I'm definitely a sucker for, creepy crawly horror. I mean, the one that I know has been here's a good thing. I first really heard about this movie, of all places, on freaking Watch Mojo, when they were doing a list of best special effects in bad movies. Or actually, kind of best special...
I can see it coming up on
and Spookies came up, and the one they talked about was the Spider-Woman.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
Yeah, that one... Well, even more so... I just was blown away by the fact that... Well, first off, if you're wondering... For those who've seen it, wondering why the Spider-Woman was Asian, in... I believe Japanese culture, there is a spider demon called the Yorogamo. And that's what she was.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, we have a representation of Japanese mythology in a movie called Spookies.
I mean...
Go figure. But then again, we've also got Death in the movie.
I mean, he looks like a Spirit Halloween... Yeah, I knew what... He looks like a Spirit Halloween icon.
You know what?
He does.
If we had a house... and there was a Spirit Halloween replica of the Death from Spookies...
I mean, it would literally be the Spirit Halloween Death guy. It would look good.
He would.
He'd look good.
Look good on my lawn.
He explodes a little too quickly, but, he's good.
Yeah, he explodes on contact, so you might want to put a little disclaimer on the sticker there. Warning, explodes on contact. But then again, so did Duke when he got, brushed aside.
Oh, no, that guy was soft. He just fell off a table and, I guess, died. And I'm like, okay. But my first... I knew, is a weird thing, but I knew of Spookies, but I didn't, know it until I was watching Joe Bob's Drive-In, last Drive-In, and we were watching Train to Busan. It was a fantastic film, And they're like, next is Spookies, and I was like half awake watching, going, what the fuck am I watching? But somehow I knew the movie existed.
I actually have a vague recollection of it, mainly because of our days going to video stores. Because I will say the cover of Spookies, which for those watching the video version of this will see, the cover is actually pretty damn cool. The poster art's pretty great on it, and it is pretty striking.
I have a memory of knowing of the... It's one of those you knew of the film, but you didn't know the film.
Yeah.
So that was... My first introduction truly was actually watching on Joe Bob Last Drive-In. That was my first actual watching of it.
Yeah.
I then had to... Because it's the second movie, I was tired. You know, give me a break. And I did actually watch all Train to Busan, so give me a break.
Yeah.
But watched it later and went, this is fucking insane. And then Dead Meat did their kill count of it. And I was like, thank you for doing this, because... Damn, this movie.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I wouldn't be surprised if stuff like Joe Bob and Dead Meat probably actually boosted the popularity of the film like recently. Though, interestingly enough, this film had an impact on a historical level, on an American historical level that that you would never think a movie called Spookies would ever have. Now, an interesting bit of trivia on this, actually I think probably easily the most interesting, and it's a wonderful fuck you to the rich story. So the house in which it was filmed at was the home of John Jay. Now, fans of Hamilton or American history will know he was one of the writers of the Federalist Papers. He was the one who kind of did the least amount. I believe he only wrote 8 of them, whereas Hamilton wrote the...
How many papers were there?
85.
So you wrote 8 out of 85. Is that 10? A little over 10%.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah. I forget who wrote this, like, the second, I think he wrote 25, and to quote Aaron Burr, Hamilton wrote the other 51! So, of course he did. He was writing like he was running out of time. How many more Hamilton references can we throw in?
No, more? I mean,
more? We can never reference Hamilton enough. Yeah, so... Yes, so the house they were filming at was John Jay's estate, and the house had stayed in the family for generations moving on from there. But the current family who owned it were not happy about it, because a house of that size was obviously very expensive to upkeep, and unfortunately they were not able to destroy the house because it was marked as a historical landmark. So they were trying to find ways to get it justifiably condemned so they could tear it down. So the family loaned it out to the filmmakers, because they were thinking, oh wow, horror film's going to film it. That means they're going to mess it up real good, especially if we give them carte blanche. Well, unfortunately, the filmmakers firstly actually did a good job restoring the electricity in there, so they had power. But then even funnier is that, even though Spookies did not do well financially, one thing, it inevitably, when it became popular on home video and it became kind of a cult film, people immediately started gravitating to Spookies and ending up wanting to find the house that Spookies filmed in. And it ended up becoming a tourist attraction. And unfortunately, it was... by mandate, it was not allowed to be demolished or anything like that. So Spookies destroyed this bourgeois family's desired...
Eat the fucking rich bitch.
Yeah, that was pretty much a wonderful eat the rich revenge. And now, and even funnier, because of Spookies, people saw the house, and there was actually one guy who said, wait a minute, that's not the door. I've got the door. I've got the front door to the house. So he actually brought back the front door to the actual...
Okay.
And,
I have the door, here it is.
Yeah.
So,
So it's just one of those wonderful times where a Z grade horror film.
Yeah, I'll put it in Z's.
Z grade horror film actually helped preserve a piece of American history.
The more you know.
The more you know. The more you know. Yeah, and I think that's a great story to tell people when you show them this movie and you say, this movie saved a national monument, and then people watch this going,
I mean, this movie is just, it's not, you don't have to think. It's not cerebral. It's not deep. It's a silly, fun horror film. It's got a lot of creature effects. Some good, maybe some not so good.
Well, what were you saying not so good?
The Muckmen.
They look good. It's the fact that Michael Lee wanted them to have fart noises.
They look adequate, because, I mean, these creatures in the basement, they're made of just mud, you know, but they're very flatulent. Why are they flatulent? Because the producers thought that would be funny.
Yeah.
Is it funny? No.
This is a British producer, by the way. Of all things, you would never expect a British anything to be like his flatulence.
Honestly, what was it? Dogma, the Golgothan.
Yo, the Golgothan, yeah.
Like they were kind of like Golgothan, but that was more subtle.
Ironically, and even funnier is that the Golgothan in Dogma actually has a really interesting origin.
Yeah,
concept.
it had an origin as to why it was like that, but it also didn't fart. Did it? I haven't watched. God. If it did, it made
but
more
again,
sense.
it's a big giant poop monster. These
These
are mud.
These are mud guys. They shouldn't be farting, and it is, and it does kind of suck you. I mean, they look fine for mud dudes.
There was a Goosebumps story called "You Can't Scare Me" involving mud monsters, like from.
Did they fart?
No, but it's like the looks of these mud men are kind of like how I would have pictured them, like originally.
That's fair.
Again, they looked.
And they're also defeated by wine.
You know, I
don't.
I guess the alcohol, kind of like washed them away or something.
I don't know. Like, there's some, like, the creatures are very cool, but like the execution, you're like, okay.
Yeah, some of them are defeated very weirdly, and some of them you just.
No. Spear Halloween.
Yeah, Grim Reaper falls off a second story
and explodes.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh well, that was done.
The way to destroy death is just drop it off a second story balcony.
He explodes. Okay, that's how it works. But then you have the fucking merman.
Yeah.
I just call him a little baby. He's a baby merman.
Little baby merman.
Baby merman. Fucking little bitch he is.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he wanted to be loved. I don't know. He seems kind of.
I kind of was like, how are you getting defeated by a thing that's like this big? Merman can't even walk, and you're still getting defeated by this thing.
She's getting chased. Yeah, the melodramatic soap opera woman is being hunted down by this thing. This thing's giving her a run for her money. Ultimately, she does crush it, though. She crushed it.
Yeah,
with
but then she gets killed like right afterwards.
Yeah, she gets killed afterwards by this other nondescript demon monster, which melts her face. Which
the tentacle type.
Yeah, that
thing.
Weird tentacle type of monster.
That thing was pretty cool, but like. Damn, could you just have more creatures pop up? Like, they have so many creatures popping up left and right, and none of them are connected. None match up to the others. It is very random. Yeah,
the whole thing of the Twisted Soul side kicks off when they arrive. They find, frankly, a pretty badass-looking Ouija board and the planchette. And one of the members of the party becomes very fixated with it to the point where she ends up getting possessed by it.
Like full Deadite style.
Yeah, hardcore Evil Dead style, and she is invoking the monsters herself. Yeah, and there's like chapters of the movie where you see her like manipulating the board.
Yeah, and there's like the creatures on each of the board.
Which, going back to the spooky side of the story, they're expecting us to believe that I want to say Chiron is the guy's name. Creon. Creon
with his little vein forehead.
Which, not gonna lie, I'd love to pull off that effect. But we're led to believe that he is manipulating the course of the evening. He possesses this woman through that board, and he's the one controlling everything from where he's sitting.
This is how you make two movies into one.
Yeah.
Is you just bounce off the other.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Okay, yeah, here we go. Yeah, so he's trying to, set up these creatures, get all these people dead so he can harvest their souls to resurrect the bride. And the bride, of course, wakes up by going, when did it? Yeah, fuck off, buddy. Yeah.
Literally wakes up and goes, I hate you. And I'm like, that's what we're leading to. And then it leads into this whole, how many minutes is that damn chase sequence?
Yeah, well,
because everyone dies.
Oh, yeah,
everyone dies.
Yeah, everyone dies. It all culminates in this whole thing where I think Duke's girlfriend, the professor, and the professor's girlfriend, I don't even know if she was his girlfriend, she was way too young to be his girlfriend, they try to stand up to the possessed woman. Now, I'm pretty sure the end of Twisted Souls is obviously they step up to her, destroy that board, and I guess in the original ending they would have survived, but obviously not. They ended up dying in the end, and so the bride is trying to run away and inevitably gets beset on all sides by zombies.
Zombies wearing flannel. All of them are wearing flannel, and it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, just a whole fleet of undead Zoran Gavoyiches. Just, that's a love letter to you, Zoran. But anyway,
True.
Yeah, but also zombies that go, Mama.
Mama. Mama.
It makes no sense of, like, why would they think that's... Like, what the hell's going on? Because
unless their child is like actually controlling the dead himself, and they're all like,
there's no explanation as to why they're calling her that.
Yeah,
because these are like 30, 40-year-old zombies. Like, why are they zombies if they were? It makes no sense. There's no sense.
Yeah, and what transpires is a glorious 4-minute sequence where the zombies aren't even trying to eat her. They're just trying. I guess they're just trying to grab her, but she is
just trying to subdue her.
Running left, right, and center, and she seeks refuge in a car, which is all well and good, smart move. Except, like, you've been out of action for like 70 years. How do you even know what a car looks like?
I mean, this is 1980, so like she's from 1910. Cars didn't look this. So how does she recognize what car was?
Yeah, just
loophole.
Yeah, I guess so, but
whatever. I mean,
and she gets picked up by a seemingly good Samaritan, only to find out Catboy and
Catboy, and then Cryon's really alive. Oh yeah, I think she stabbed him in the forehead.
Stabs him in the forehead with a ice pick.
But he's okay, so he pops up at the end and boop, movie's over.
Yeah.
No resolution. Makes no fucking sense. What the fuck is going on? But you're enjoying every bit of it because it's just fucking insane.
This is definitely spaghetti on the wall filmmaking, where like it leaves where this isn't even the spaghetti. This is the mess that's left on the wall after you get the spaghetti off, and it's just kind of glorious for it. It is just hilarious to even try to... I think the fun for me is always trying to rationalize or piece together the movie. This is like trying to throw together two jigsaw puzzles in the hope that you could actually kind of piece them both together and combine them. But then you find out now they're just always going to be separate no matter what.
I mean, I like the fact that the effort of the special effects are solid. Like, the effects are solid. There's a lot of heart put into parts. I mean, I think whoever was making each part of the film were putting all they could into it. It didn't mesh together, so it's kind of hilarious watching like this horrible combiner of a film, because in the end it makes no sense. But you could argue it probably made no sense when it was the original story. Who knows?
When the shit was going down and the directors walked, part of the other reason why they just did this whole other plot line with the spooky side is because most of the cast walked alongside him.
Which is respectful.
Yeah, they just a lot of them just very clearly enjoyed what they were doing there and did not like what was going on. And one thing that does make me legit sad is to find out that these directors didn't really have much of a career afterwards. I think just because the other downside is that when a movie tanks or when it gets like any kind of like bad press, it's always on you. A lot of times it's pretty much on the director themselves. I mean, they're the ones who kind of get the blame.
People are weird about where they place blame if a film doesn't do well. Like, it's the director. It's this, and oftentimes it's an amalgamation. I would argue in this case it was the producers.
It was definitely Michael Lee's fault. Yeah,
but also I would argue this was a time when also it was delayed in the release, so it came out at a time where the horror genre wasn't as big, like in the later 80s, where it was kind of doing that slight downturn. Basically, where people were being very disenchanted with horror, so it was coming out at a time that people weren't even susceptible to having some fun with horror. Yeah,
and because I know it did not get a wide release either, that didn't help matters either, but ultimately the directors kind of got the blame for the downfall of the movie, and when in reality it was Michael Lee's fault, and it's to the point where the directors actually will be very vocal, flat out saying that burn in hell. Like, I've actually heard them in interviews just balls out saying burn in hell.
Have at it. My view is, you don't like somebody, I respect you more for being honest about it than being professional in the sense of hiding it so you don't upset people. Like, listen, this guy dicked you over. It should be known. Yeah, that's my thing. I feel like if you're, an asshole, you should be called out for it. And this producer was an asshole.
Yeah,
simple enough.
in the case of this movie, going back to what I was saying about how good it is to learn production histories of this one, this movie can indeed be valuable in learning the importance of finding the right people to help you make the movie. And that's not just saying to directors or cast either. It reaches out to the producers as well. If you need to make sure that whoever's ponying up the dough to help you make the movie, make sure there's someone who has the interest of the project at heart, or at the very least sees what you see in terms of what can be done with the project. Because the second you have someone who is so self-interested in what they want to do, that can just derail the whole thing right there, because then you're in your efforts to try to please both masters, you please no one.
Well, how many times do we hear about producers who are like, "Oh, I want this. This should be happening," and they destroy films.
Oh yeah.
But it's not an uncommon thing. This one's just a weird situation of where a second half of a movie was created and then crushed into another one. I mean, I'm sure there's other films that have had this problem before, but
lots of them.
But this one is a definite. It's the rare instance where that crushing of two films together kind of maybe elevated it to a level that is just not something you could naturally create. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, this is a sheer oddity. I mean, this is just one of those things where key circumstances occurred that are so bizarre and so weird that when the more people learn about it, the more allured they are to the movie as a whole. Mm-hmm. And then they feel compelled to show other people to it. In fact, that's what happened with us, because shortly after this season aired, when things were starting to calm down from the pandemic, we actually had our first Halloween party, and we showed this at our Halloween party, and everyone loved it. Everyone had a great time with this movie. And actually, that's a beautiful thing about this movie, is that this plays great at parties, because you don't need to give a shit about the plot. Since you don't need to give a shit about the plot, and the movie has great visuals and great stuff in it just on a visual level, this is a great one to show at parties just for sheer ambient viewing. Like, you don't... And I think that's the major reason a lot of our people loved it, just because they were seeing cool shit, didn't have to worry about the plot. Well, I think, actually, let's throw a bone to the movie. Let's go ahead and let's give some love to the actors in the film. Now, who do you think gave the best performance in the film? Mook, the puppet?
Yeah. Sure, why not? I mean, no hate to it, but everyone did fine. I mean, kudos to
Actually,
shit, I don't even remember his name. The older gentleman with the bitchy woman who had to pretend to be attacked by things outside that were never animated into the movie, so they look like they're being attacked by nothing.
Oh yeah, that guy.
And, and he will replicate that sequence.
Actually, speaking of Mook, I actually will give one who I think was very clearly making the best of a bad situation was Peter Iascello, who played Rich, who was the puppeteer of Mook. Yeah, he was actually the guy who honestly he was trying to make
memorable. You can remember.
You can remember him not just for the puppet, because actually he did have a line or two which actually did cry. Actually, I think his first line where he's like, I want to have a few beers in me before I die. Right now I'm a little too sober to appreciate it. I'm like, honestly, that's a line I would actually throw out. He
does get a good death with the spider woman.
He really does. He really does. Going back, well, that all goes back to for reference, go to our episode we did talking about creepy crawlers. We talked about that whole thing, about my love of giant spiders. But anyway, so that's our pick for that. I guess it's customary at this point we had to talk about our favorite kill, but I guess you already kind of alluded to yours.
Actually, it wouldn't be the Spider Woman. It was a great kill, but I would go with I don't know what the name of the thing was, but like the tentacle thing that attacks the woman and then melts her face, but it's done in stop motion, so it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, like basket case level stop motion.
Yeah, it was like old school stop motion, so it's not like gory in a gross way. It's kind of hilarious. Yeah. But I would say because it comes kind of out of nowhere, because she's just defeated the merbaby. I don't know what merman, merbaby.
Yeah, merman, merbaby.
But she defeats them and just literally runs to this thing in the hallway, and it just kills her instantly.
Oh yeah, that one I like a lot. I mean, obviously Spider-Woman's great, but I do have to. Oh, what's the one I have to give love to? Actually, I'm going to give love to what was obviously supposed to be the finale of Twisted Souls, because it does come to a point where the possessed woman's head actually opens up and kind of... just seeing her gradual...
it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, just the gradual decomposition, just turning into that evil beacon was actually just really fucking cool. Even to the dead end. It's like that was something I didn't mind going back to so many times because I liked seeing how much further her decay would go, and that one looked really, really fucking awesome. So yeah, so that would definitely be my pick. Now, currently this film is I think the Joe Bob episode is back on. I want to say it's back on, but
it will be at least for Halloween.
Yeah, at one point or another. Hell, actually, for a time I even found this sucker just on YouTube in bootleg form, because I know for a time this was one of those movies that was not widely available at the time. However, if you are an enthusiast like myself, Vinegar Syndrome also came out with a spectacular Blu-ray edition. It actually has a lot on here. It actually has the untold story talking about the UK developer Vipco, Michael Lee's company, and the guy responsible for it, but also talking actually a good feature-length long documentary about the making of. Like, this thing is candid as fuck. And not only that, we have a reunion of the actors talking about the time they had working on it, and it was so fun hearing everyone's personal take on what happened and how people were astonished despite everything that the film has a following. So, yeah, and I think that's... I know we've run into so many actors in our time where they're astonished by how popular a movie gets. And,
you never know.
Yeah.
I mean, you honestly never know what people are going to latch on to, especially decades down the line. And all that.
Yeah, so I guess to wrap up, what's the ultimate lesson that we as viewers can take away from Spookies?
That even if things don't go the way you want it to, you never know what can happen afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the best lesson we got. So, all right, that is Spookies, and then this is our first edition of Comfort Flicks for 2024. And stay tuned. We do have a couple of juicy ones coming up this month. In fact, next one is not only was it my favorite of 2021, it's one that you loved so much that you had to cosplay from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Facebook literally reminded me, like 3 years ago, I watched this movie and I was like, I'm cosplaying that character.
And if you're watching it on video, in the cacophony behind us, you might find a little prop from it. So don't tell them. Oh, you told them. Well, you told the video people.
Yeah, anyway. I told the people on the video. People on here were like, the fuck?
All right. Now, as is customary on What's in the Podcast, I tell you all any recent titles that I got a chance to watch and just how I felt about them. Yes, in lieu of my reluctance, I still gave a shot to the remake of Speak No Evil. Now, it's of course a remake of a film that came out 2 years ago, a film to which I widely consider to be one of the best, easily most fucked up movies that came out in 2022, which, if you remember, that was one of the best fucking years horror's had in a long time. But, of course, as these things go, a remake came out. Now, this is a remake where it is entertaining to watch. I will never discourage people to not watch it, because it has entertainment value, just by virtue of the fact that James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, Aisling Franciosi, who is in stop motion, and the Nightingale is great in it. It has high entertainment value, but I will say if you are attached to the original film by virtue of the fact that it is a fucked up, deranged, feel-bad movie, you're going to be disappointed with this one, because as any remakes do, it Hollywoodizes it in ways that are very hard to forgive. Another one I watched was The Front Room, the horror film with Brandy that came out and starred Catherine Hunter from Poor Things. Started off strong, despite the tsunami of old people poop and piss. Yeah, there's a lot of old poop and piss in this movie. And it was still going strong because of this great fencing match between Brandy and Catherine Hunter. But then it just ends. It just wraps up. And it never properly explains, was this a paranormal thriller? Was this just a psychological thing? Never really gives a proper explanation for that. And even the ending, even though it should be satisfying because of everything we've gone through with Brandy's character, you're left going, huh, what was I left with? So that's what I watched recently. tune in next week where I will have a little spotlight on The Substance, which I will be watching tomorrow. That one I'm really looking forward to. So in the meantime, stay tuned, and if you're looking to delve into the dark bowels of human imagination, ask yourself the simple question, what's in the podcast? Thank you for joining us on this edition of What's in the Podcast. If you find yourself hungry for more deep cuts into the gloriously morbid and macabre, you can also find us on TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Narcotic Casserole. You can also follow us on Instagram at Narcotic Casserole 25. Also on Twitter. Yes, Twitter. Elon can suck it. At Narcotic Casser 1. NARCOTICCASSER 1. Follow us if you dare.